Alright, welcome back to the channel, guys. I am currently on a beach and there is plenty of workout equipment around me. So that could only really mean one thing. We're on Muscle Beach, baby. Whew. So, workout at Muscle Beach. Check. Man, I worked so hard, right, in the 2 months leading up to this trip to try to do a muscle up. I've got my own pull-up bar, my own bathroom, which I've been using like every day, doing drills and muscle ups, and still can't do a muscle up at Muscle Beach. Sorry, when we parked here at Muscle Beach, we actually went to the Santa Monica Pier first, which you can see hopefully in the background there. And then shortly after that, we then went to the Muscle Beach gym, which we were just there like a second ago. And now we are on the, I guess, self-proclaimed famous boardwalk in Venice Beach. That's better. So yeah, I think we have a few attractions that we want to visit here in Muscle Beach. So we did the Muscle Beach gym, we've done the Santa Monica Pier, and I think there's also the Venice Beach sign, I guess, which is in downtown city area, I guess is probably what it's called. There's also the Abbott's Kilney Boulevard, which is like the main street in Venice Beach, where you can do a lot of shopping, and there's a lot of restaurants and nightlife, I think, as well. So I think that's like the main street there. There's also a skateboarding park, which we definitely want to visit, and there is also the Venice canals, which should be pretty romantic, especially when I'm by myself. And then finally, I think there's also the Pride of Venice lifeguard tower, I think. So I think that might be quite a cool spot to shoot a video later on today, where we go through one of my poker sessions from last week. Last week we were in San Diego and we visited La Jolla Beach, Mission Beach, Ocean Beach, and then we ended the video in Coronado Beach, which was in my opinion the best beach. And I must say that this beach right here, which is just right in front of me, the Muscle Beach or Santa Monica Beach, I think this is the nicest beach of them all so far. Alright, so we've just arrived into Abbott's Kinney, which is the main restaurants and shopping street here in Venice Beach. One of the things that I tend to do when I go traveling is I like to buy clothing. I like to buy t-shirts from different places that I visit from when I go traveling. It works quite well actually on a twofold, because number one, I tend to pack light, so when I do that, I don't have that many different t-shirts. Like for example, the one I'm wearing right now, like this one is from Big Sur when I was driving the Pacific Coast Highway. The added advantage of traveling light and not having that many clothes is that you can then buy these clothes when you're out traveling, and they double as a souvenir. Yeah, it's time to do a little bit of shopping. Right, so unfortunately we couldn't find our white t-shirt. So we've now left the Abbott's Kinney and we've then proceeded to the Venice canals. So we've just arrived and this is what I can see so far. I've suddenly noticed a very tranquil feeling upon entering the Venice canals. I have to say, it feels kind of nice. It's very, very peaceful here. I was also just thinking, it must be pretty weird having like a place where you live, like in the Venice canals, for it to just be like a massive tourist destination or attraction, which is going to have loads of like random tourists, yeah, like me, just kind of snooping around their neighborhood, like taking loads of videos and pictures. I'm not sure how I'd feel about that if I lived in a place that was like a tourist attraction. I don't know if I would like that, to be honest. So the plan now is to grab an early dinner. I've scoped out this place which serves the type of cuisine which I've never had before, and that's Hawaiian food. So I'm very curious to see what Hawaiian food is like, and yeah, just really looking forward to it. Alright, so we just sat down at our table at this Hawaiian restaurant, and it's actually quite an upscale restaurant. It looks really nice inside. So we've just ordered the rock shrimp starter, and then we've got the huli chicken, which is like a Hawaiian chicken, I guess, with a side of rice. Thank you very much. And it's just arrived. Wow, the rice and the shrimp. So we're still waiting for the main course, which is the huli chicken. Let's try this out. Wow, the shrimps are amazing. And it's just arrived, the main course, the huli chicken. Right, so let's try this bad boy. Here goes. It's nice. Right, so we just finished dinner at Bell's Beach House, the first time I've ever been to a Hawaiian restaurant. The food was good. I wouldn't say it was outstanding, but it is definitely has the ambience of the kind of restaurant that I love. It's definitely like the kind of place that I would love to go on a Friday, Saturday night. Yeah, very nice, casual, relaxed, stylish, a bit upscale. Yeah, definitely a really lovely restaurant. So now we are just going to find a spot to enjoy the late afternoon sunshine, and also go through one of the most exciting sessions that we played at the Commerce earlier last week. Right, so we are going to end the video with our final attraction, which is right behind me, which is the Venice Pride Lifeguard Tower. So today has been a pretty amazing day. Really enjoyed it. The beach is definitely my favourite beach that I visited so far. It's been a very relaxing day. Had a really nice meal, saw some really cool stuff, and just really enjoyed the sunshine. Right, so as promised, I am going to go through one of our most exciting, almost action-packed poker sessions at the Commerce last Thursday. Right, so first interesting hand of the session. The action folds to us in the hijack, and we look down at Ace King of Hearts. So we make it $20 to go, and only the small blind and big blind make the call. So we are now 3 ways to the flop, which comes Ace, 10, 5 I think, and it's just like 1 heart on board. Action checks to me, pretty standard C bet here, so we bet $25. And the small blind calls, and then the big blind makes the fold. So we are now heads up to the turn, which comes a 3 of hearts. So we now add the nut flush draw in addition to our top pair. Small blind decides to check twice, and of course on this turn card we are going to bet twice. Question on sizing, we definitely want to size up here, I think, given we now have a much more valuable hand. We can still get a lot of value from a lot of worse hands. So that's what we decided to do. We decided to double barrel and size up to $90. Small blind then tanks for quite a little while, and then he then settles on a call. So we're now off to the river, and the river just comes like another brick. Now small blind decides to lead into me. He leads for just $120. Now this spot really sucks, because I don't really see what hands he leads here that we beat. I mean, he'd have to make some really goofy bet with like a weak ace-x hand, or turning some kind of random second pair like a jack-10 or something into a bluff. Most of the time, I should be beat here. So just to cut a long story short, we decide to make the side call, and villain then tables ace-3 offsuit for a turned 2 pair. So yeah, this hand really sucked. Right, so now moving on to the very next hand, there is a blind raise under the gun to $10. There are then 3 callers behind, and we look down in the small blind with 6-9 offsuit.
So we decide to flick in the call, and big blind also completes. So we are now 5 ways to the flop, which comes king 6-9 with a flush draw. So we decide to start the hand with a check. Big blind checks, and it checks to one of the late position callers, who then puts in a bet of $35. Action then folds to us, and here I think we have a pretty standard and clear raise. We are about $500 effective to start the hand versus the villain. I plan to go for just a 2-street game here, which is trying to just go for like a check raise on the flop and then jam most safe rivers. So that's what we decide to do. We decide to assemble a bet of $135, and then we slide it in. Action then folds back to the late position player who bet the $35, and he goes deep into the tank. He's thinking and thinking and thinking, and then he starts giving me some speech plays like, oh, I hope you're doing this with like a flush draw, blah, blah, blah. And then he eventually settles on a call. So we are now heads up to the turn, which comes another brick, given that's like one of the perfect turn cards now for our hand. So we jam the rest of our stack in, which is about $330 effective. Villain then goes into the tank again. He starts talking to himself, he starts talking to me as well, but I'm not responding. But then he then decides on a call. Very, very happy to see that. Fortunately, the river breaks out, we show our hand, and it's good. Thank you. So after winning that stack with the 6-9 offsuit, we kind of hoped that things would get even better when action folds to us in middle position when we look down at Queen Jack of diamonds. So we open the pot to $20. Action then folds to the small blind, who was actually the same villain who we played against when we had the Ace King of Hearts when he had the Ace 3 offsuit. He thinks for a little while before making the call. Big blind gets out the way, so we are now heads up going to the flop. And the flop comes 10 of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 7 of hearts. So dream flop here. Small blind starts with a check, and we decide to just put in a C bet of $20. And villain then thinks for a little while before making the call. So we are now off to the turn, which comes an offsuit 8. So we now turn the nuts. Villain decides to check twice. Given there is quite an obvious straight on board, I didn't really like kind of blasting this turn card, as I was quite keen to keep villain in this hand if he did have like a 2-pair type hand. So we decide to bet an amount to the tune of $55, and villain doesn't think for too long before making the call. So we are now going to the river, which comes a 3 of diamonds. Villain then decides to lead out for $165. This is against the same villain, right, who led out when he had aces up. Again, in this spot, I'm like, what's going on? We flopped a monster pretty much. We've turned the nuts, we've rivered a flush, and now we get led into for quite a large sizing by a player who pretty much never bluffs when he takes this line. I'm just pretty sick to my stomach here. Well, fine, he can still have a smaller flush. I think if we had like a baby flush, it would probably be an easier fold. But given we have quite a strong flush here with the queen high flush, I just felt like this hand is just too strong to fold. So we flick in the call, and villain, sure enough, shows us Ace 8 of diamonds. So yeah, what a horrific run out for our hands, as we would see.
165.
Right, so now it's been a couple of hours of being card dead. The table's changed quite a bit, and there is a new player who joined who is very good for the game. So in this next hand, the action folds to the aforementioned player on the button. He opens the button to $15. The action folds to us in the big blind, and we look down at Jack 10 offsuit. So we decide to defend this hand and see a flop. Effective stacks are about $1,000, so I think villain has us just slightly covered. So we go to a flop, and it comes Jack 10 3 with 2 spades. Pretty decent flop here. We start with a check, and villain quickly c-bets to $15, and I think in this spot, granted, we can obviously raise and stacks are very, very deep. I, however, decided on this occasion to just make the call and go to a turn. We flick in the call and we are off to the turn card, which comes another 10. So we now have a complete lock on this board. We decide to check twice, hoping for villain to double barrel, and villain does oblige. He decides to double barrel to the tune of $30. I think in this spot, given we've seen quite a decent amount of strength through the double barrel, and given my read on this specific player, I decide to go for a raise, fully expecting villain to continue with the call. I decide to raise it up to $135. And sure enough, villain doesn't think for too long before making the call. So we are now going to the river with the effective nuts, and the river comes another spade. So now the front door flush completes. So I'm very, very pleased to see this run out. Given the size of the pot and also given the effective stack sizes behind, I think the way to maximise our value in this hand and to maximise our chances of getting stacks in, I think 2 bets needs to go into the river here. So I don't think we want to bet and then risk getting called. I think the best line to take here would be to go for a check raise. So we decide to play a check with a full house, and we are obviously praying that villain does have a hand that he can bet and that he doesn't just like snap check back. Villain tosses in 3 white chips, which is $300. I am certain villain has at least a strong flush here. We take quite a bit of time in the tank before we then announce all in. So we jam our stack in for about just over $900. Action's now on villain, who is now visibly quite upset, but fortunately for us, he has a hand that he just can't fold. He then says, if you've got a full house, it's yours, nice hand. He makes the call, we show our hand, and it's good. We now drag a huge pot of over $2,000. Villain showed ace deuce of spades for the nut flush. So yeah, pretty horrendous run out for him, and we are on the right side of a very big cooler. So in this hand, action folds to middle position, who opens the pot to $20. There are then 3 callers behind before we look down in the big blind with ace king of hearts. So I decide there are far too many players in this hand, so we decide to put in the squeeze to $130. So I may have decided there are far too many players, but it seems that everyone disagreed, and the reason is because every single player behind me made the call. So we are now 5 ways to the flop, which comes 9, 7, 3, 2 hearts. So given the pot's like $650 and effective stacks like remaining is like $400 or $500, we have a pretty no-brainer jam here. So that's what we decide to do. We stick all of our white chips in, and now all of a sudden the whole table's pretty like whoa, what's going on sort of thing. We then see 3 folds behind us before the action's now on the small blind, who goes into the tank. He's tanking and tanking, and I'm like, mate, just don't be a hero and just fold it. But after tanking for a while, he settles on a call. So at this point, I'm thinking I'm beat. But of course, with 2 overs and the nut flush draw, you know, we're not really afraid to kind of run this board out. So the dealer puts out the turn card, which is a brick, and then the river card. The dealer puts out the king of spades. So I can't tell you how good it felt to see that river card. So we immediately table our hand. Villain sees the ace king, and then he mucks. So we now win another huge pot here, and our session is going really, really well. Our stack now climbs to $3,000 to $4,000 now, and we are just on cruise control. Right, so now brings us to the final interesting hand of my session last Thursday night. So in this hand, the action folds to us in middle position, and we look down at 8, 7 of diamonds. So we make it $20 to go. The action folds to the cutoff, who makes the call, and then the big blind also calls. So we are now 3 ways to the flop. Comes 10 of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, and then just like an offsuit 3. So pretty amazing flop here for our hand. Action checks to us, and I think in this spot we can go either way here. We can bet or we can check, and if we check, we can check raise or check call. We pretty much have all options available to us, given how strong our hand is. So on this occasion, we decide to go for a check, and then Cutoff decides to make quite a chunky bet here. He bets $50 into a pot of like 65. The big blind folds, and now the action's now back on us. So effective stack size, I think Villain has like $400 to start the hand. So after mulling over my options, we decide to go for a check call and then look to check jam some turn cards. So we make the call, and then the turn comes a 7. So we now improve with a pair to go along with our gut shot, straight draw, and also our flush draw. We continue as planned, and we decide to play a check. Action's now on Villain, who thinks for a little while before putting in a bet of $70. Now Villain has like $260 or $270 left in his stack. I think he's got the perfect amount behind for us to check jam, and by that I mean he has enough money in his stack to have for us to have some fold equity if we decide to go for a check jam. So that's what we decide to do. We put Villain all in, and then Villain goes deep into the tank. He must have been thinking for like 2 or 3 minutes, and I think one of the players on the table even wanted to call the clock. I am of course willing for Villain to make the fold here, as I'm pretty confident we don't have the best hand here, even though we do have a boatload of equity. After quite a long tank, Villain then decides to finally make the call, and he says, if you've got the overpair, you're good. So we're off to the river card, and I'm praying to hit one of my million outs, but unfortunately the river comes an offsuit jack. We table our hand, and Villain is quite confused at the beginning. I think with the way we table our hand, it always looks like we've got the nuts. He's trying to figure out what we have before then realizing that we just have one pair, and then he tables the winning hand with 10-9 offsuit for a flopped top pair. It sucks it didn't quite work out, but yeah, pretty happy with the way we played our hand.
Almost 4.
Right, so that now concludes all of the interesting hands that we played last Thursday night. So I think this was like the second biggest stack that we've built since we started grinding at the Commerce. We bought in for like 900, or can't quite remember now. I think we bought in for about nearly like a K, and we cashed out for like $3,500, which means we cashed out for a profit for about $2,300. So it was quite the profitable session. So this past week we finished up in profit for over $4,000. So this was a very strong week for us. Very pleased and very grateful for the result. Thanks for watching, guys. Gonna tune out now, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.